Hi everyone, this is Gerari over at Big Head Games, working on Project Imp today. Please forgive the poor audio quality. I'm using a headphone microphone to record today, and there's a lot of background noise because the office is pretty busy at this moment. Anyway, today I wanted to go over how to use Blueprint native events and how we at Big Head Games use Blueprint native events to allow our non-technical individuals to hook into things and make small changes without having to go to a programmer in C++ all the time. For this particular feature, we actually are implementing a teleportation animation. And some of you may be wondering what a Blueprint native event is. They're actually pretty straightforward. They're simply C++ code that runs and then fires off an event into a blueprint, which then fires off any additional code attached to that event. The signature for these is pretty simple. You use the ufunction macro and then call the Blueprint native event tag attached to that. I typically make my Blueprint native events blueprint callable as well, so that they can serve as regular functions for our less program-oriented but still technical scripting designers. And then you have your regular function call or function signature here. In the CPP file, there's an important distinction. Our function signature has this underscore implementation attached to it. And this is really important. It's the only way that the compiler is going to know what code to run. Notice that these functions are actually empty, which is really neat because it means that I can call functions here and it looks like they're not doing anything, but in blueprints they actually are doing plenty. I can also add code here, which will fire before the blueprint code will fire. But for right now, for the purposes of this walkthrough and for our purposes, we really only need these to communicate with the blueprint. So when I call this function, the let's say onSwapStop function, notice that I'm using the headers declaration as opposed to the underscore implementation version, and that's really important so that the machine will know exactly which to call. Unreal will handle most of this. You may get a small error or warning here saying that it's not found. You'll just have to trust that Unreal knows what it's doing. And what this will do is, as I said a minute ago, fire off this event into a blueprint. And what does that look like in blueprint land? Well, so same as any other blueprint event, you just call it like on begin play, on tick, or any of the input events, and you do whatever you need to do. In this case, we are triggering a small particle effect, and then on swap stop, we're ending that teleporting particle effect. That particle effect was written by our tech artist, and this is where it lives. It's kind of over here. Now, the reason we did this is that this teleportation effect idea came a little bit later in development. We already had a bunch of spaghetti code from several developers with their hands in the pot, and then we have this swap copies function called here, here, and here. And rather than make changes in 3 places to trigger this animation, I wanted to do it in 1. Luckily, our swap copies function is a C++ function where I can just call this onSwapStart event, and that'll handle all of this for me. So what does that look like? Well, I'm going to come over here and play the game. I'll go ahead and skip past the intro cinematic. Now that is a little hack we put in for development purposes. But when I throw my orb and I swap, I get a nice little trail behind me. Granted, there's some camera work to be done there where we pull the camera out so that we can see the trail. But for our purposes, that's a task for another time. Now the cool thing about this is if my level designer says, hey, I can't see and I need to turn this off, they can just come in, click a button, turn it off, compile, and now when we go to play, there is no particle effect. I'm actually going to leave this on for later development purposes. And yeah, that is Blueprint native events in a nutshell, and that's how and why we're using Blueprint native events over at Big Hat Games. We hope you continue to follow us and stay tuned for more development content.